All right, we're making a guess. It's going to be the first fall. Cat in the library wearing the... Hey there, welcome to Board Game Barrister, our local game shop in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is Tuesday once again, and every Tuesday we get to play a game. Today we just played Deduckto, a game where we are playing as duck detectives who are trying to figure out which animal committed the crime, and we'll talk about how that works in just a second here. I'm with my fellow barristers, Glenn, Ian, and Elizabeth, and before we get into our game and everything we loved about it, we are going to talk about how to play. Welcome to Deducto, a game where each player's got their own secret suspect card they're trying to figure out before everybody else can figure out their own. When the game starts, each player's going to get a hand of 5 critter cards. And you can see here, each card in the deck has 3 elements to it. There's the suspect themselves. I've got Pinky the pig. Pinky has a disguise, which is the mask in this case, and then is going to be at a location, which is the pier. And that's going to be the same for every card in that deck. Now, the one other thing to know about these cards is that no 2 cards are ever going to share more than a single element with each other. So while I can have a dog in the park with a hat on and a pigeon in the aquarium with a hat on, there will never be a card that's a dog with a hat in the aquarium, because then it would share the hat and the aquarium with the pigeon, and that's not going to happen. That's very valuable to know about for when you're trying to deduce who done it. And the last thing each player is going to get is going to be one card that they're not allowed to look at, that they face away from themselves, and that is the secret suspect they're trying to find by the end of the game. So in this case, all the other players would be able to see that I had the fox with the monocle in the library, but I'll never see that until the end of the game when either I guess correct or somebody else beats me to it. Each of us also gets one of these really handy suspect reference cards that's going to show us all 7 suspects, all 7 disguises, and all 7 possible locations to help us while we deduce. And now that you know all about how the cards and the suspects work, you're most of the way to knowing how to play Deducto, because the gameplay itself is super straightforward. On each player's turn, they're going to have that secret suspect faced away from themselves and the rest of their hand at the ready, and they're going to play one card from their hand. They'll put that card face up in front of themselves, and everybody else at the table is going to check that card against the secret suspect they can see in that player's hand. Then they'll tell that player either yes or no. Yes, if that card shares one element, and it could never be more than one as we talked about. If that card shares one element with the secret suspect, then they say yes. And if it shares no elements, then they say no. And that player is going to have 2 separate piles, a yes pile and a no pile, to tell them which cards do share an element with their secret suspect and which cards don't. In this case, we have a yes because the library is shared between these 2, so I, as the player, would now be looking at this card and thinking, alright, my suspect has either got a wig, is the pigeon, or was in the library, and that's the first clue to my final answer. We'll keep going around, getting yeses or nos and putting our cards in the proper pile as to which one it is. And eventually that player might start to feel like they've got enough information between those yeses and those nos to try to make a guess at who their suspect is. So instead of playing a card on their turn, they can choose to make a guess. To make a guess, you just claim the suspect, disguise, and location you think is on your secret suspect card, and if you're correct about all 3, you win the game immediately. And if your guess wasn't correct, the other players are going to tell you, no, that's not it, and that's okay because you actually technically have 3 guesses over the course of the game, but each guess you get incorrect is going to punish you a bit along the way. If you think you've got your answer and you make a guess, and the other players tell you, no, that's not your secret suspect, you don't lose the game. Instead, you choose one of your 2 piles to flip upside down, and that information is now lost to you for the rest of the game. A second incorrect guess is also okay. That just means you have to flip over your other pile, and we're going to keep going around, playing out suspects and making our guesses until somebody finds the correct answer, guesses their secret suspect, and ends the game, and then we shuffle up and play again. Alright, so we just finished our game. We played with 4 players today, and interestingly, this game plays 2 to 4 players, and that's the entire range. When I first saw that, I felt like, well, that's interesting. It really feels like mechanically the game could go up to 6 really easily. It goes around the table really fast, so why doesn't it play up to 6? The answer is the math of it. Based on the number of possible answers and how the cards kind of come together in the algorithm, there aren't enough cards for more than 4 players. So it plays up to 4, but it plays really cleanly because of how they've built how the cards work together and all that stuff. Our game took exactly 10 minutes. It could take up to 15 if you had a bunch of people really thinking through that final deduction on what they thought their final answer was, or if I had gotten my answer wrong because I was the one who made the first guess and I happened to get it right. That was not a guarantee. I had not actually figured it out. I got a little lucky there. So it could have gotten up to 15 minutes, which is what the box says really easily. Cat in the library wearing the mustache.
What? Yes.
Yes.
So one of the nice things with this game is that with who you're playing with kind of determines a bit of the difficulty as well, because when you're playing with a group of adults, there's going to be a lot more thought put into every kind of card you play, generally. And that's going to kind of make it a bit more of a race feel to it, to try to get to that answer before the other people do. Whereas if you're playing with kids a lot of them are going to try to be a little more certain before they make those guesses. They're going to try to eliminate more things and be less likely to just take that chance because they're not paying attention to the deck's almost out, we're running out of time. They're just kind of, they're looking at the animals, they're trying to figure it out. Where I'm going, geez, there's one card left in the draw pile, and he's really close to getting there. I got to come up with something, even though I'm not that close. I may have to take that shot in the dark. So I like the fact that it kind of ages up with people as well. I like games that do that.
The other really interesting thing is that if you have kids that are not as risk averse, or maybe someone like me who does feel a little risk averse, the game actually gives you a mechanical way to actually encourage you to go ahead, and when you get down to that maybe 50-50, go ahead and take a guess, because that is actually part of the game. This is a safe place to fail. There is a mechanic for, all right, I got one wrong, I'm going to continue and I'm going to move through that, and I'm not going to have anxiety about it. So that's actually good practice for kids as well.
Well, and I just have to do a call out to the art. The animals themselves, the way they made it look like mug shots.
Yeah.
They all look a bit worried or angry, or just there's just enough to make them look where it's not like the little cutesy animals. These are all animals who they've seen some stuff and they've been somewhere. So any one of them could easily be your suspect, and I love that aspect of the game as well.
I think what I like is a game like this where the mechanics are not difficult. It's super easy to just jump into and know how you're going to play. All of the thought in this game is done with the reasoning and the deduction that you're doing while you're playing, which I think is a really interesting take on something like this, where it's not, you don't have to roll dice or know how stuff moves around the board, or there's no front side learning on it that you need to do ahead of time. You get to always be getting affirmative yeses as you progress through the game until finally, like Elizabeth said, you've got that chance to take your shot on which one you want, whether that's a 50-50 or a 1 out of 3. It's not going to feel terrible because there's the leeway of, oh, I can just guess again next time as long as no one else is able to get theirs.
All right, I think that does it for Deduckto. Thank you so much for joining us this week as we talked this one through. We had a really fun time with it, and we hope you had a fun time watching. As always, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see our videos every single Tuesday, leave a comment if you got a comment, and check out our online store. You can find all the cool games like Deduckto. That is it for this week, and we will see you next time. Thanks.